for being a couple minutes tardy, but excited to have a big group here this morning. Would like to welcome you and appreciate your interest in this agenda item this morning. We do have a lot of interest. We'll ask our secretary, Peggy, to take a silent roll, and we are going to start off with a show of appreciation and honoring our page, Brody Benson. Brody, we organized this big crowd just for you. So if you would come up and take the podium, turn the mic on, and just introduce yourself for the record and tell us what you've kind of experienced here at the Capitol this last half of the session, and anything you want to share with us. And as you do that, or before you do that, we sure want to let you know we've appreciated your help and your efforts this session. So the time's yours.
Well, Chairman, I'm Brody Benson. I'm from Burley, Idaho, and I've learned more here than I ever could at school. And I didn't realize that senators could actually be this cool, and that actually I learned to love all of you, and you guys have become like one of my favorite people. And it's been super fun being in state affairs, helping out with everything, hearing all the arguments of what people have to say, and I've really enjoyed it here. It's been amazing.
Well, we've sure enjoyed having you. Senator Burnt looks like he might have a question.
Mr. Chairman, these pages have a little button on their sweaters, and it's a fun meter, and Brody's fun meter is always at max. And so I'm grateful for your attitude. It's been fantastic to work with you and work for you. Work with you. Both, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been great. Your fun meter has been max, and you've been a lot of fun to work with. I appreciate it.
Brody, what's your plans after graduation, that type of thing? Give us a kind of a blueprint of your next year.
Next year? I have like the next 10 years of my life planned.
Yeah.
So after this, for the summer, I'm going to do summer sales with Ninefold and doing pest control. After that, I'm going to go on an LDS mission for 2 years, hopefully to Colombia, because that's where my mom is from. After that, I want to go to CSI to get I want to go to CSI for an associate's in business, move on to pre-law, and hopefully become an attorney.
Oh, wow. Good job, Brody. I wish I'd have had that kind of vision when I was your age. I don't see any other questions, but we do have a little token of our appreciation for you. So if you'd come into the well here, our secretarial.
No secrets.
And it's your discretion if you want to show us what you got or not, so. Yeah. That's a letter of from the committee, signed by the committee for.
Certification right here. I got a letter from all the senators signed. Oh, recommendation, that's what it was. And just, I think another letter of recommendation. All right. I thought I just got my own folder for one time. I got that. I can have my own coffee in the morning now. Oh, there's something else. I actually had the whole crap. Oh, it's got a pen, I think.
Well, thank you, Brody.
Yeah, it's a fancy pen. My 2 minutes are up now.
Again, we've appreciated you, and good luck with your future plans. Sounds like you got a pretty good course mapped out for yourself, and we wish you success. Next, we're going to entertain the minutes of March 13, 2024. Senator Anton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've reviewed the March 13, 2024 minutes. I move they be adopted.
Second.
Motion by Senator Anton, second by Senator Winder, that the minutes of March 13, 2024 be approved. Discussion on the motion. Don't see any. Those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we're going to hear House Bill 710 and would welcome Senator Carlson up. Have to turn that mic back on. Welcome to committee, Senator.
Good morning. Good morning, committee and Chairman Guthrie. Thank you. This is a topic that House Bill 710 is a topic that we are all familiar with. I believe it was attempted to clarify what material kids can have in public schools and libraries for probably, I think we're going on the third year, maybe fourth year. Anyway, it's one of those issues that I came to the Senate very passionate about. We started with House Bill 666. Last year we had House Bill 384 that we made it through the House and Senate, and the governor vetoed it. We were not able to stop the veto. And then earlier this year we had House Bill 384, which was held in committee, and then we had 1289. And hopefully this bill is a compromise for everyone. So that's what I'm hoping for. Just to review a little bit, harmful material damages a child's young mind. Whatever you feed the human brain is what it learns to love. Harmful material hijacks a child's brain and focuses the body's attention until it climaxes and creates a desire to repeat the process. When this process occurs during the all-important adolescent years, the brain creates deep neural pathways that are ruts that crave the harmful material, resulting in an adult brain that craves the supernormal stimulus of harmful material. Harmful material tends to teach that sex is selfish, violent, sexual consent is not necessary, sexual partners are objects for pleasure, and sex is expected. Parents and citizens of the state of Idaho and the rest of the country are angry and want access to this harmful material to children be removed. I was notified this week that kids from one of the areas that I represent in Lewiston still have access to this material in the public library. I believe you may have all received an email on that. Several books were found 2 days ago, and I would bet that somebody testifies regarding that today. So let's kind of just go through the bill. Gather all my papers here. Okay. House Bill 710 would amend Section 1815-14. The amendment being, just a few, you see the edits there, but basically down to page 2, starting with line 11, removing according to prevailing standards in the adult community. And the reason for that is it's clearing up the constitutionality concern. It also removes section 1815-14 B, the quality of any material of any performance or of any description or representation in whatever form, which as a whole has the dominant effect of substantially arousing sexual desires in persons under the age of 18. That has been removed to clear up. I'll just tell you exactly what it does. The current language could be deemed unconstitutionally overbroad because it deviates from the modified Miller test, which courts have determined, which courts use to determine whether a specific work is obscene for minors. And then Just to let you know, this allows parents, if desired, to allow their children to access sexually explicit materials. They can sign a permission form to allow it. This bill will not limit the right or ability of parents to expose their children to whatever materials the parents choose. Enforcement would be limited to injunctive relief, which a county prosecuting attorney and attorney could seek against a school or library. It also would be allowable for a parent whose child obtained obscene material from a school or public library to pursue a private cause of action. This would be allowed after 2 steps. The parent or legal guardian provides the institution written notice, giving 30 days to have the material relocated. In such cases, the minor parent or legal guardian who prevails in an action would be allowed to recover $250 in statutory damages, plus actual damages if any other relief is available by law. In addition, one more change is it's item 7, line 37. The public school or library needs to have a form, and on that form, it needs to specify what harmful materials is. So that is the complaint form that they file and give the 30-day, which gives a 30-day notice, which allows the material to be removed. So I believe it's a cleanup of all the problems that we've had. There's a lot of people that believe that it will cost the libraries too much time to remove it. I don't believe after they remove the material and put it up so parents can access that material for children, I believe that is a great solution. So with that, I will stand for questions.
Are there questions for Senator Carlson? Senator Harris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Carlson, thank you. Just real quickly, so I'm clear. If I'm a parent and I go into a library and find a book that I don't think is good for my kid, and I fill out a form, kind of walk me through the process if I go to the library and find a book that's inappropriate.
Senator Carlson?
Thank you, Chairman, and Senator Harris. So my child brings home a book that they or I am concerned about. I fill out the form. I hand it to the library or the school librarian. They have 30 days to do something with it. Bring it in front of whatever their policy. So they will have to have a policy that follows the 30-day process. They remove it. If they don't deem that it is, if they believe that it's okay, that parent can take that through the legal system, and the legal system would be able to identify if it's a problem, and then but they have to prove that it's following the harmful material to minors, that it's actually harmful. So if somebody comes up with a book that is, in my opinion, not harmful, but they're kind of overreaching, if the school says, no, that's not harmful, take it to court, I believe that might happen once or twice, and they'll realize it'll get thrown out. That a prosecuting attorney won't take it on, and if they do, they won't get anywhere. I think at some point, the first few times it gets challenged, I believe it'll pretty much set that standard.
Senator Anthony?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Carlson. So I just heard you say they could remove it, but I think as I'm reading the bill, is it the case they would not remove something from the library, they would just relocate it to an area that, is that correct?
Senator Carlson?
Senator Guthrie and Senator Anthony, the school or library can remove it to another location. Sorry, I needed to clarify that.
Just to
Senator
follow up.
Anthony?
Just because I think when I've heard these hearings over the years now, the rhetoric is you're burning books. And I just want to make sure that this bill is not removing materials from a library, it's just making it not available to minors.
Senator Carlson?
Chairman and Senator Anthony, this does not remove the material. It puts it in a place where parents can access it if they wish their child to access it. They sign a permission form. It's not that they will allow, realizing that their child can access that material if the parent gives permission.
Senator Anthony?
I have one more question, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Anthony?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Carlson. The other question I have is, And the other thing I've heard a lot, and I want to make sure it's clear in this bill, is there any prosecution of a librarian in this scheme of how we would deal with these issues?
Senator Carlson?
Chairman and Senator Anthony, absolutely not. It is the institution that is responsible.
Senator Ruckte?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Carlson, how do you respond to the criticism that this bill and similar bills that have preceded it allow a single parent's sensitivities to material to trump the ability of other parents and their children to have access to books and other materials that they would like their kids to be able to read?
Senator Carlson?
Chairman and Senator Ruthke, can you rephrase that question a little bit?
Maybe pull your mic a little closer too, Senator.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Senator Carlson. How do you respond to the criticism that this bill and its predecessors allow a single parent in our community with sensitivities that are much stronger than, say, every other parent in the community to restrict access to books for all the other families based on on that single parent's sensitivities?
Senator Carlson?
Senator Guthrie, Chairman and Guthrie and Senator Radke. This bill does not isolate any parent whatsoever. It just allows the material to be accessed by anyone if a parent so desires.
Senator Harris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Carlson, when you was going through the bill, you mentioned constitutionality of it. Can you kind of expand on that and how this bill would be constitutional?
Senator Carlson?
Chairman and Senator Harris, I'm going to read through helpful information that I received. House Bill 710 rightly follows federal court precedent by amending Section 1815-14 6A2 or double I to strike the unconstitutional requirement that the serious value prong be judged according to community standards. So the first section that is X'd out, a court crossed out, according to prevailing standards of the adult community with respect to what is suitable for minors, that's been removed. And then the 1815-14 6B, that whole section B is removed. The current language could be deemed unconstitutionally overbroad because it deviates from the modified Miller test, which courts use to determine whether a specific work is obscene for minors. So there's been a Miller test, and then there's been a modified Miller test, and this complies with the modified Miller test based on Supreme Court rulings. And I am not a legal scholar, so I could read what I have if I need to.
Senator Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Carlson. So as I'm looking on page 3 and kind of walking through, the A, B, C, and then I get to number 5. So the cause of action, the parent has to go to a prosecuting attorney or the attorney general, and those are the individuals who bring a complaint back to the board. Is there a civil process to this also?
Senator Carlson?
Chairman Guthrie and Senator Lee. There is 2 possible processes. The prosecuting attorney, and that's the cause of action. And then the affirmative defense. And I am not a legal scholar, so I might ask for help from my audience, which I'm not sure if I have any present, but Senator Anthony might be able to define that for us. I do not want to botch that up.
Thank you.
I don't see any other questions. Let's go to some testimony, and as we do that, and as we call Isabella Burgess up to start things off, I will say we have an awful lot signed up. We'll get to as many as we can. We do have a pretty hard stop prior to 10 because we've got to be on the floor. And as Isabella Burgess, Yeah, oh, there you are. Yeah, come up, introduce yourself for the record. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Chairman Guthrie. My name is Isabella Burgess. I'm here testifying in opposition of House Bill 710. Is there any other clarifying information you need from me?
No?
Okay. As an associate librarian in the Treasure Valley, I am very concerned about the implementation of 710. My small branch library does not have the space, funds, or staff to accommodate for this bill. The expectations of 710 are so vague that we cannot be expected to comply with them. I have no idea what the adults only section should look like per this bill, therefore I have no way to tell if I'm complying with it or not. But the biggest problem with this bill is in the definitions. Section 3 of 1815-14 includes acts of homosexuality in its definition of sexual conduct. That's line 24 on page 1. Once again, incredibly vague, but even worse, this is obvious and targeted homophobia. It also does not align with any modern definition of the word sexual conduct. I know that this is Idaho code and that this bill cannot change that. Regardless, it is included in the bill, and that is a problem. Additionally, what will our hold sections look like where there is material of all age ranges reserved for pickup? What should library systems that share materials between each other do upon this bill's passage? How is age monitored? There are no answers in this bill as to how this should be implemented and what the expectations are on libraries. The logistical issues of this bill will create a chilling effect. Libraries are already slowing down much of their usual spending in preparation for an onslaught of legal fees. We cannot work when we are preoccupied by frivolous lawsuits. Our staff and board make the correct decisions on location and materials that much of our community is satisfied with. But if one person who does not even have to be a tax-paying patron within our library district disagrees with materials decisions, they are allowed civil cause of action. This is bad legislation. For these reasons, please vote no on 710.
Thank you for your testimony this morning. Jenny Emery Davidson, welcome to committee.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Guthrie and Senators. My name is Jenny Emery Davidson. I reside in District 26, having grown up in Twin Falls and chosen to live my life in and devote my professional career to the state that I love. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you. I speak for myself, but I am trying to amplify the voices of literally thousands of people who I see use and depend upon their libraries every day. And this bill simply does not make sense to me. What is this modified Miller test? How is the constitutionality issue that we're concerned with not free speech? This bill does not create the conditions for an informed citizenry or for respectful dialogue. It creates the conditions for censorship and litigation. It includes in Section 2C the vague and sweeping language, any other material harmful to minors. This suggests that any one person has incredibly broad leeway. They don't even have to be a card holder. They could be from California. And they could say a book is harmful and request it be removed from general circulation. So we could start dealing with, at our libraries, someone stating that Harry Potter is harmful because it includes witchcraft, or that a Shakespearean play is harmful because it contains murder, and libraries will have to respond to this. Would the library then have to move that book to a locked cabinet or a separate room where someone would have to show ID in order to access that book? Is that the situation that we want to be cultivating here? Please help me understand if I am misinterpreting the bill. It seems to provide a mechanism for censorship. If you think this legislation is necessary, can you please tell us one book, one specific book that concerns you? Could you please explain how it offends? Could you describe how it meets the criteria of the Miller test? Could you explain how you engaged the existing library process and determined that the process did not work, not just that the outcome was not what you wanted? You can vote to lock up books, or you can vote to respect and even celebrate a community that is made up of a wide range of voices. Please oppose House Bill 710. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I don't see any questions. Megan Cafferty. Welcome to committee. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning. I apologize for my illness, but I felt it was important to be here. My name is Megan Cafferty. I'm a library assistant at our local Meridian Library. I have a lot of objections to this particular bill. But the one I'm going to focus on today is the monetary cost that I don't think is really being thought about here. Our adult section is not an adult-only section. In no library in our state do we have it sectioned away, closed off in a separate room. In order to do that, in order to make these areas inaccessible, we would have to completely rebuild, remodel all of our libraries at a time when we're struggling with funding. We're having to fund our summer reading programs based on donations alone. These are not negligible costs for us to completely wall off an adult-only section, as well as potentially staff such an area. Because unless we lock the door, how do we make sure that no minor can get in? So we need to either create an entire locked-off area or add additional staff to monitor our adults-only section. It's just infeasible currently. We're having issues even retaining our current staff because we can't compete with the rising costs of living. We can't afford to live in the city that we work. I personally can't have a studio apartment and afford to eat in Meridian. So we definitely can't afford to remodel and add all of these extra costs to our libraries without more thought on this. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We're going to try Maureen Anderson by telephone. Maybe not. Maureen? Maureen, if you can hear us, we might have to try you later. We're not, for some reason, we're not connecting. Marcia Bravo? Welcome to committee.
Good morning, Chairman Guthrie and members of committee. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Marcia Bravo, and I greatly oppose House Bill 710. I'm an Idaho native and a retired educator who served more than 40 years in the Idaho public schools. I believe in education, and I believe in and wholeheartedly support libraries. As a concerned citizen, I find myself before you once again, urging you to reject this vague and overreaching bill. I invite all of you to come to my local library, and I would challenge you to find a more hardworking, dedicated, professional staff anywhere in the state. Yet because of this bill, my librarians and librarians all over Idaho are forced to work under a dark shadow cloud of suspicion and criticism and accusations and potential lawsuit. And that's just not acceptable to me. In its current form, this bill is quite simply a bounty bill on librarians. And I clearly recall the issue that our governor rejected this last year. No bounty bills on librarians or libraries. In addition, this harmful bill provides for no review process of complaints, and complainants can get $250 per quote-unquote offense, plus undetermined damages. House Bill 710 frames itself in a lose-lose context for librarians and libraries. Either comply with this bill and run the risk of violating the citizen access to constitutionally related protected materials, or face costly consequences from censors who can be out of area, out of school district, out of community. I urge you and plead with you, vote no on this bill.
Thank you for your testimony. Robert Wright? Seen you before.
Yeah, I'm getting used to coming over here. My grandkids love this kind of stuff. Just up first thing, I just want to say thank you for your service. I know it's not easy to give up your family time and your work time for 3 months and come here. And the next thing I say is, good people can disagree on different issues. And in the words of Cool Hand Luke, I'm going to date myself here, I think what we have here is a failure to communicate. So what we're looking at is the difference between practical, most of the librarians here are worried about the practical implementation of this bill. And most of the senators are worried about the ideological, or the fact that children have access to inappropriate materials. So in our library, I think I've told you this before, if like my kids tell me I repeat myself, so forgive me if I have said this, but we've instituted a place where parents have to sign if their children access adult materials, anything outside of the children's library. And that has worked very well for us. The issues I have with this bill is the relocation thing. Yes, it is in the House, it was said this is a relocation bill. And that's true, it is a relocation bill. And in school libraries, they'll relocate stuff right out of the library because school libraries don't have adult sections. And my concerns are, I'm gonna run out of time, so I gotta speed up here. Anybody can file an action. So we get outside groups coming into local Idahos, they're gonna pick on the smallest libraries because they don't have the funds. What are reasonable steps? We believe we've taken reasonable steps in our library, but you know what, somebody might not. And that ends up in a lawsuit, and we still have to pay for the attorney's fees. A better solution is to let parents decide, and it was the sponsor said that access material, parents can sign a waiver. That's true, but the parents have to be with the child every time they come into the library, and that's just not going to happen. The last thing I really want to state is there is a difference between a 17-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I think that's getting lost in the discussion here. In our library, we don't provide access to those materials to little kids unless their parents say they can have them. To me, that's a better solution. My time has expired. I would encourage us, this is not a good bill, not for libraries, not for implementation. I would encourage you to vote no, and if you want to do something, let's work on something next year that's actually feasible for everybody. Thank you for your time.
Looks like there's a question from Senator Burnt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Robert, thank you for being here. I like your approach. Your approach is very pragmatic and very thoughtful, and I really appreciate that. Not that others aren't, but I just really appreciate what you said this morning. It made me think about the practical aspect of what this bill says and what it, if passed, will force libraries to do. You spoke about practicality. Can you go into further detail of how that may affect your library and how it will, and if it's feasible for you to meet those expectations in the bill?
Mr. Wright.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Burnt, it's going to be different for every library, but for our library, we have 3 floors. So on the first floor is the children's library, and we have scrubbed that. There is nothing I think anybody could take offense to. We do have same-gender families in that collection because we have same-gender families in our community, and they need representation. But were this be implemented as outlined, one of the possible, and I'm talking possible because we don't know until we get sued or whatever, but we would have to station somebody at the 3rd floor and just check everybody's ID. And we'd have to check everybody's, just like beer. When you're buying beer at the store, anybody under 30, because to us old people, anybody under 40 looks the same age. But that's the dilemma is, do you pay, and if we had to do that, it's $50,000 every year for us additional, just to pay somebody to stand there and check IDs. Now, the sponsor in the House said you can just have a shelf, buy a $25 shelf off eBay. Well, if that would solve the problem, then it's really not a problem. Because we have 350,000 books in our library. So we're talking about a little $25 shelf, and if that's all the books we have out of 350,000, good luck finding the bad stuff, right? I mean, you're gonna have to be looking for it. Just let me say one other thing here real quick. Nobody's talked about fan fiction on the internet, and I don't know if you're familiar with fan fiction, but it's a lot worse than anything in the library. So the practical issue is we don't know. If I look at this and I take worst case scenario, it's a nightmare. And you take a smaller library like, say, Rigby, where it fits inside this room, how do you maintain that? How do you monitor kids? Soda Springs librarian told me they have 600 kids in their library during summer reading. They have 2 staff. How do they monitor 600 kids? to make sure somebody doesn't wander over. Unless you physically build something and lock those books up, it's just not practical.
You have a follow-up, Senator Burnt? No, Senator Ruckie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Wright. Help me understand your understanding of how the bill would work. Let's say there's a book that's challenged, To Kill a Mockingbird, Handmaid's Tale, something like that. And, well, let's just say it's To Kill a Mockingbird. And the library doesn't even think it falls under the ambit of this statute because there's nothing, at least I don't remember reading anything sexual in the book. I think people take offense to it for other reasons, but I don't think there's anything sexual in the book. Library says, boy, we just don't think we've done anything wrong by keeping it on the shelves where it is. We're going to keep it there. But this particular parent is just hell-bent. You cannot convince the parent. Under this bill, what happens to that book, and what are the steps that are taken, assuming the parent does not relent?
Mr. Wright.
Thank you, Chairman Guthrie, Mr. Senator Ruckie. My understanding of the bill, and I'm not an attorney, but I spent a lot of time talking to our city attorney about this. So they got him on speed dial now. The way it would work is we get the complaint. The board has 30 days to respond. If they say no, we're not going to move it, and there is a rape scene in To Kill a Mockingbird, which people might object to. If people say no, then they can file suit. If they file suit, then it goes, and whether we're right or wrong, somebody has to pay the attorney's fees. And that's one of my issues with this, is that we're going to stick some poor ideologue with attorney's fees for not only theirs, but for the city also. Because our attorney's not going to let it go to trial if he thinks it doesn't pass the Miller test. But that means that poor individual is taking the burden of what legally and rightfully should be the responsibility of government.
You have a follow-up?
I do, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Wright. Now, what happens to Kill a Mockingbird from the time it's been challenged until you get through whatever the results of the trial are? What does the library do with that book?
Mr. Wright.
Thank you, Chairman Guthrie, Mr. Senator Ritchie. I'm slaughtering your name, I'm sorry.
You are. I'll take it up with
As
you.
one of my staff members, that's my Idaho showing. What happens is undefined in the bill. In our library, we would probably leave it on the shelf, which is going to irritate people more, but it is undefined in what happens there. So I'm going to assume most libraries will address that issue in their policy. If this passes, we'll have to revamp our policy, and that would be defined in the policy.
You good? You good? Don't see any other questions. I know you come from a long ways away, so appreciate you being here. Aaron Kennedy. Welcome to committee. We've seen you before, too.
Yes, a few times. Can you hear me? All right. My name is Aaron Kennedy. I'm from District 17. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and the Idaho Library Association. I'm going to go over some of the same points that people have already said. In the House, the sponsor said this is just a $250 fine. It won't hurt libraries that badly, but it is also damages and injunctive action. And again, libraries do not have adults-only sections. We don't have the money to create or the staff to police such a section, even the biggest libraries down to the smallest libraries. Placing a book behind the desk, as has been suggested, where not even adults can freely access it, that is likely unconstitutional. It doesn't matter if a library deems a book is not obscene for minors according to the Miller test. If a patron disagrees, they can still sue. That's my understanding of the bill. And the vague language in this bill also concerns me. It says that libraries will be open to a lawsuit if they promote, give, or make available any material that a patron believes is harmful. So what does that mean? If a child walks into a library, say a small library, they see a book on display that's already in the adult section, can a parent claim that they have then been harmed? So are we talking about moving the entire adult collection behind a locked door or in a blacked out room? And there's no mechanism here to prevent bad actors from attempting to gain a payday or cripple an institution. Anyone can make a challenge. They don't even have to live in Idaho. And we've seen this in other states where people from outside of the state will put in a challenge to 400 books or more. We don't want that happening here. And even if a civil action fails, libraries will still have to pay the legal fees and spend the time in litigation, and that's staff and resources as well. This is the third year I've been in this building testifying on libraries. We serve everyone in our communities, and I don't think libraries are the problem here. I urge you to vote no on this bill.
Thank you for your testimony. Laura Delaney. Welcome to committee.
Good morning. My name is Laura Delaney, and I am the co-owner of Rediscovered Books in downtown Boise, a former Idaho teacher with over 20 years of experience, and the parent of 2 children who grew up and used public libraries for their entire childhoods. House Bill 710 removes the process of community review boards for determining the status of a particular book in a school or public library. It allows a single voice to have the right to change the decision of a professional librarian. To make matters worse, the person who brought this complaint will collect at least $250 from the library if they do not comply with their demand. To comply, librarians must move the book to an adult section with ID requirements or remove the book completely from the library. There's no option to appeal or review that community complaint. It doesn't go through a process that libraries have had for decades. I really feel this bill is against the ideals of democracy, and where there is consideration and discussion and a process to make decisions that affect the entire community. We have these processes in place. They have been effective. They reflect community values and the professionalism of the librarians in our state. I grew up in rural Illinois on a dairy farm outside of town. My school district was 50 miles in diameter, and the library was essential to my childhood. When I had questions, the library was there, and I could gain information I needed. Often, these were questions my family could not or would not answer. The librarian in town would guide me to what I needed, and I trusted her judgment. She shared with me time and again the right amount of information for my age and situation. She was a professional, just as librarians are in Idaho today, just as I was when I was an educator and worked with librarians. Libraries today fulfill that role. They really do care about what their students engage with and how they engage with it. But they also protect the rights of a parent to choose what they have. My daughter did National History Day, and she chose to work on a project around internment camps and the Japanese army and the invasion of Japan. There was a lot of really challenging material in that, and she picked this when she was in 7th grade.
And if you could wrap up.
Okay, I'm sorry. But I had a reference librarian who was there to guide her. She was not banned from that. And I urge you to vote no on 710 to protect the experiences of children to have professional librarians who really love them.
Thank you for your testimony. Kathy Grismeyer. Welcome to committee.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Kathy Grismeyer. I'm the Government Affairs Director for the City of Boise, and I'm here today to oppose House Bill 710 in its current form. With my limited time, I want to echo and reiterate the city's concerns around the censorship components of this bill and how the language around making available or having something present in the library attached with a private right of action, in addition to a secondary potential investigation by a county prosecuting attorney or the Attorney General's office, really does create this environment of censorship and legal liability and risk for libraries. However, understanding that there is an interest in addressing this issue, I want to propose to this committee a handful of simple amendments that we think could help alleviate some of the issues and allow for libraries to continue to work through their local processes that they have in place to allow for that dialogue to happen between a constituent, a library user, and library staff and library leaders to address issues. So to call your attention to a couple lines in the bill, I'm looking at page 3, starting at subsection B, starting at line 6. As was mentioned, there are many libraries. City of Boise, including, is one of the largest library systems in the state, does not have an adults-only section. It's something that's not really feasible from a facility or structure standpoint. So we would ask that the language around, I'm looking at lines 8, any such material designated for adults only be changed to an age-appropriate section to allow for that appropriate review of the material and where it can be placed. I would also ask for a similar change to be added in subsection C again, where it references the adult access only be changed to age-appropriate section. Would also ask that in both subsections B and C that the timeline around 30 days be struck and changed to 60 days, provide a little bit more timeline or appropriate consideration for the library staff to move through that process. And then under subsection 7, looking at line 37, each school and public library shall have a readily accessible policy and form. Again, to reiterate the processes that are already in place at many local libraries that allow for a constituent to come in, talk with their librarian about a particular material in question, and allow for that dialogue and process to move forward. I'm out of time, so I'm happy to answer any questions or repeat the amendments that I would like to propose.
You don't need to do it now, but would you make sure the page or the secretary gets those amendments? So
Yes.
just in case so we have those for the record.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Senator Ruckty has a question.
Have you run these changes past the Idaho Library? Mr. Chairman and Ms. Grismeyer. Have you run these changes past the Idaho Libraries Association or other stakeholders?
Ms. Grismeyer.
Chairman Guthrie and Senator Ruckty, yes, I've connected with Idaho Library Association and the Idaho School Boards Association as well.
Okay. Thank you. Jeff Kohler.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Good morning, Senators. I'm Jeff Kohler, an elected unpaid trustee of the Meridian Library District. However, this morning, I speak only for myself and not on behalf of that board. This bill's latest reincarnation continues to contain real-life practical challenges with logistical effects on our library and other libraries around the state. One example of many of these logistical challenges is on page 3, lines 9, 13, and 14. Those lines specify that any so-called harmful materials must be moved to an adults-only section of the library, or else the books would be fair game for the bounty hunters, including those bounty hunters outside of our district. As has been stated here, libraries do not have adults-only sections. Here's an analogy that might be helpful to you. If you need a new shirt and you walk into Target or Kohl's, wherever you shop, you're going to go to the adults section of the store. That's where the clothes that fit you are located and those clothes that appeal to your style. Those stores also have adult departments and children's departments, but they don't have an adults-only area. Libraries today are like these department stores. However, this bill, with its requirement for an adults-only area, puts them on the same footing as a bar with age requirements. Public libraries do shelve books in general sections according to their fit for different audiences. But if this bill were to pass, I would recommend to my fellow trustees that on July 1, we close our doors to the 200,000 books to anyone under 18 not accompanied by a parent or guardian. We couldn't risk the legal liability otherwise. Some might say just put the objectionable books behind the counter and let people ask for them there. My response to that is a 5-minute internet search on library censorship will turn up years of established case law on why such behind-the-counter book placements are illegal under the First Amendment. When the parents of high school students this July start asking me why their kids can't enter our library unaccompanied, I will direct them to the current wording of this bill. Please don't turn Idaho into a state where one has to show proof of age not only to buy beer, but also to check out books.
Thank you for your testimony. Ron Bizanci?
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, you have a question?
Yeah.
Senator Burnt.
Mr. Kohler, I appreciate you coming from Meridian, and I appreciate your work with the Meridian Library District. You mentioned something in your testimony that I haven't heard, and we haven't heard in a while, that I can remember, is that can you elaborate on your comment regarding if this bill passes, that you will recommend to your fellow trustees that only 18-year-olds will be allowed in the library? Is that
No one under 18.
Mr. Kohler.
Sorry, Mr. Guthrie, Mr. Burnt. No one under 18 unaccompanied by a parent or guardian. Yes.
Thank you. Ron Bizanci. I know I messed that one up, but whoop.
That's all right, Senator. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Ron Pisaneski, and I serve on the Board of Trustees of the Boise Public Library, though my comments today are my own. I urge you to vote no on HB 710. As a board member, I'm concerned about the cost to taxpayers of this bill. Like libraries across Idaho, BPL has a rigorous process in place to assure that no content in our collections is obscene. We have well-established procedures for reconsideration of materials if patrons complain about anything in our collection. That process has served us well, and all Idahoans well. At the Boise Public Library last year, we had 2 requests for reconsideration out of more than 2 million items checked out. And both of those were resolved between the patron and the staff without them coming to the board for our review. But that doesn't mean that someone won't challenge our decisions in court as a result of this bill. Although the private cause of action provisions in HB 710 calls for a maximum judgment of $250, the real cost of mounting a defense in court can easily run into the tens of thousands of dollars. For small libraries, this is way beyond their means. In addition, the need to create and staff an adults-only section will be either impossible or beyond the means of many libraries. You've been to these small one-room libraries. You know what I mean. They will be forced to remove content that is clearly not obscene just to avoid these costs. These attacks on libraries and librarians are incredibly demoralizing to our staff, who are just doing their best to serve their community's needs. Despite what some may say, there is no pornography in Idaho libraries. I urge you to let the processes in place continue and to vote no on HB 710. Thank you for your consideration.
Senator Winthrop.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Mr.
Pisaneski.
I've known you for so long and I still can't get that right. I'm so sorry. I have one question for you, and I can kind of hear it in your voice. And I'd like you to maybe talk a little bit about the toll that this is taking, at least it's what I'm perceiving, on you and others with this years-long battle.
Mr. Pisaneski.
Senator Guthrie, Senator Winthrop. Yes, our staff really have become demoralized after years of this fight. You know, they entered the library profession because they love community, they love the patrons that they serve. But you know, honestly, we have a number of staff people who have decided to leave the profession, to leave Idaho because they feel like they're under attack, and it's frustrating, it's demoralizing, it's been difficult for our library director to continue to keep staff and to hire staff because of the proposed legislation that's come before this body over the last 3 years.
Thank you for your testimony this morning. Nicole Pantera. Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Guthrie, members of the committee. My name is Nikki Pantera. I am also a member of the Board of Trustees at the Boise Public Library. I don't want to repeat too much of Ron said, but I do want to reiterate that this is unnecessary because we already have policies in place. They are robust. The board reviews them every year. We spent 2 hours this year going through the policies, going through the form, and making sure that people, one, felt comfortable submitting the form for reconsideration or moving books, and two, that they were fair under the First Amendment and served all of our patrons. Oftentimes, when a book is challenged, one patron has requested that book to come into our collection. And we do have collection acquisition and development policies that do not permit obscene, harmful materials, and they certainly don't permit them to be in the children's section. So what we are deciding is one patron's book more important than another's? Because there aren't obscene material, likely we would not remove that book. What would happen, we believe, is lawsuits because someone simply disagrees, not because the material is obscene. As many people have talked about, this is expensive. The other piece I wanted to touch on
is that I've been to the Boise Public Library my entire life. My children are there regularly. The library staff is wonderful. They're wonderful at helping me as a parent find appropriate materials for my kids. There's materials out at all the libraries for parents to use to show them how to see what's in a book. Is it appropriate for your kids? My kids' library cards are linked to mine. I can see at any time what they check out. So really, the library's focus on this issue has been to empower parents to make the appropriate decisions for their kids and to allow us to serve all of our patrons, all the citizens, in my case of Boise. And just as my last 6 seconds, I would reiterate that this has been heartbreaking to library staff. It's been exhausting, and it's unnecessary. So I urge you to vote no and support libraries and these important public servants.
Thank you for your testimony. Rebecca Proctor.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Ms. Pantera.
Ms. Pantera, would you?
Apologies.
Senator Ruckte.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Pantera, what if there was an amendment to the bill that said if a challenge or a parent who has challenged a book's challenge is refuted by, say, 10 parents, that it would remove that challenge book from the ambit of this statute? I recognize the inequity that 10 parents have to refute the sensitivities of one, but I suppose that's better than one parent being able to govern the issue for all of the parents in the community.
You're welcome to answer the hypothetical.
Chairman Guthrie, Senator Ruckte, I appreciate the question. I think my response is that really belongs at the local level with the library board. It would be so much easier if that's something happening, we would see it. And we would consider that 10 parents have opposed this book, and that's can be part of our process. I'm really concerned about trying to legislate these local policies. It doesn't allow us to be flexible and responsive to our constituents. It also just simply doesn't allow time for that. So I guess I'd need to see kind of the time frames and the process, but really anything where we're trying to put a process like this in a statute, I have a little bit of heartburn with because of the implementation.
Senator Ruckte.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Pantera, I don't think I explained my hypothetical very well. What I was saying was, if you have a parent that opposes To Kill a Mockingbird, they want it removed, and they're just hell-bent on having that book removed, they're not going to relent. But there was something in the statute that said, okay, parent objects to a book, says it's obscene, but 10 parents come in and say, we disagree. We think that book is appropriate. There's no pornography. If you had 10 parents come in and refute that claim, then it would just remove it from the coverage of the statute altogether. It wouldn't be covered by the statute anymore. And now the library could just use its normal processes and wouldn't have to worry about this statute. Would that be helpful?
I'll let you offer a brief answer, but we're getting off the scope of the bill.
Okay, Chairman Guthrie, Senator Ruckte, I don't think that really changes my answer. I think, again, we have robust policies as to how these are evaluated, and the staff looks at a number of different factors for each book. So while the parents, opinion is important, it's not determinative, and I wouldn't want us to be in the middle of sort of arguing between parents about what's appropriate for their kids.
Let's go with Rebecca Proctor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Guthrie and committee. My name is Rebecca Proctor, and I'm speaking for myself. In my career as a school librarian and parent, I've read lots of books for minors, from tots to fully grown high school seniors. That is a huge range of physical, emotional, and intellectual differences. And I want to talk about some books for teenagers that could end up targets of this bill. Many books for young teens have relatable coming-of-age characters that help readers navigate confusing emotional and hormonal upheavals, body image challenges, peer pressure. Some books will include characters who may experience normal but sometimes very scary body changes, such as menstruation, I'm all nervous here, nocturnal emissions, and sexual feelings in age-appropriate context. Some relatable teen characters will help readers navigate harms that sadly too many of our youth have experienced in real life, such as sexual shame, social media, sexual exploitation, and sexual assault. Segregating these books from teen readers into an adult-only section of a school library is just ludicrous. Please remember, most books written for teenagers are not meant for little ones. Librarians and most parents know this. The broad brush of HB 710 does not address these glaring age variances. Please help end the relentless and shameful harassment of your Idaho libraries. Let parents decide what's best for their own kids, and let patrons and librarians handle book challenges locally without government intrusion. Please vote no on HB 710. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Grace Howitt? Welcome. Introduce yourself for the record. The time's yours.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Grace Howitt, and I serve as a policy assistant for Idaho Family Policy Center. We fully support House Bill 710, which utilizes model language drafted last year by IFPC to address this issue. We're grateful that the sponsors have brought this bill forward. As we all know, children's access to school and library pornography is a widespread issue across the Gem State. In fact, when IFPC scoured public school and community library catalogs across Idaho last February, we found obscene titles were made available to children in more than 50 libraries throughout nearly 30 communities across the state. Obscene materials hinder the moral development of our youth and contribute to juvenile crime. For these reasons, in a landmark 2003 decision, the U.S. Supreme Court affirmed that states like Idaho have a legitimate and compelling interest in protecting young library users from harmful materials. According to our statewide public opinion polling, nearly 74% of likely Idaho voters believe that schools and community libraries should keep obscene materials away from our minor children. In fact, Mr. Chairman, I would like to present this petition signed by 2,221 Idahoans from every corner of our great state, calling on the state legislature and Governor Brad Little to restrict children's access to obscene materials in taxpayer-funded schools and libraries. House Bill 710 accomplishes this goal, and for that reason, Idaho Family Policy Center is excited to support it. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and Mr. Chairman, if you are willing, I have these petitions for you.
And when you finish, you can stand over to the page, but it looks like Senator Burnt has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you this morning, Grace. I love the fact that your organization that you represent have fight so hard to protect kids. I think that it's admirable, and I think it's important. I think that we all agree that we need to fight for children and we need to protect them at all costs. 100%. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, male, female, old, young.
A question?
Yeah, sorry. It's really important. My question is, how do parents, where do parents fit in your equation?
Ms. Howitt.
Mr. Chairman, one thing to note is that this legislation doesn't prohibit parents from taking out any material. Sorry? It doesn't prohibit parents from taking out any material they want for their minor children. So that's how parents are put into this equation, is that they still have the right to check out any material and give it to their child. The library just cannot make that material directly available to minor children.
Fair enough.
Thank you. Grace, Crystal Ivy. Welcome.
Good morning, Chairman Guthrie and members of the committee. I am Crystal Ivy. I'm from District 14. As a person born to teenage parents who led very reckless lives, often putting myself and my 4 brothers in bad situations, school was my main escape. When I was 6 years old, I got my hands on a public library card. At school, I could only check out 1 book at a time, but at the public library, I could take 3. When I was 7, on the way home from the library, I got so many books that they broke my backpack. I left the backpack behind and carried the stack of books in my arms all the way home. Books provided me with role models I did not have at home, stories of success I could not see present in my own life, and a window into a world that was not only unfair to me. In second grade at the school library, my entire life changed. I remember the dim lights. I remember the smell of the books. What I do not remember is exactly what I read or saw, but at the end of our class that day in library, I raised my hand and I told the librarian and my teacher about the sexual abuse that was happening to me in front of my entire class. It was learning through the resources at the library that I mattered. I was indeed born plain white trash, but I learned that there was more out there for me. One of the things I say as often as I have a chance is that I am what I am because of access to books. Every person deserves access to books. Perhaps they will find one that gives them courage, helps them feel less alone, and inspires them to rise above. Choosing a book is a very personal choice that allows a measure of anonymity in our quest to know more. Passing a library bill says that we have a problem with libraries and librarians. We do not. We have a problem with people wanting to limit access to a reality that makes them uncomfortable. I stand before you today as a person who is grateful that my 7-year-old self was able to access materials that allowed me to feel strengthened and capable of having a better life. What I saw that fateful day would have made my abusers very uncomfortable. I still had access. I urge this committee to not pass this bill. Libraries are shelters of hope, resilience, solidarity, and triumph. Thank you.
And I thank you for your courage to share that story.
Absolutely.
Lance McGrath. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman Guthrie, members of the Senate State Affairs Committee. Wasn't nervous, but now that testimony just really got to me.
Yeah, that
was powerful.
Unfortunate placement, wasn't it? Follow that.
It just happens. My name is Lance McGrath. I reside in Nampa, Idaho, District 12. My official role this morning is as the president of the Idaho Library Association. I register my opposition to House Bill 710 as a father, a freedom-loving American, a native Idahoan, and a librarian. I'm a 70s kid. I was born in Boise. I played in my grandparents' farm, and I watched Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Did you ever watch Mr. Rogers? Either by yourself or with your kids or with your grandkids? Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood offered a time of kindness, curiosity, acceptance, and learning for children of all ages. This is akin to the mission of Idaho's libraries. Idaho libraries are beloved institutions that provide much-needed services to their communities. Idaho's libraries are places where people are treated with decency and acceptance. Children, families, single people, people who speak different languages, people who are poor, people who are rich, people who are housing or food insecure, people with different religions or no religious belief at all, the elderly and the infirm. Idaho's libraries serve them with kindness and respect without favor. They are welcoming, like Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers also did some things that upset people. In 1969, Sharing a Wading Pool aired. Do you know this episode? In it, Mr. Rogers invited Officer Clemens, a black police officer, to share a wading pool with him to cool his feet. This was at a time when desegregation of public swimming pools was highly controversial. But who now could argue that Mr. Rogers was wrong? Libraries do things that might upset people too. Libraries have books about people or topics that might make others uncomfortable. Libraries serve people that other people might not like. House Bill 710 is a bill in search of a problem. Idaho's libraries are not the problem. The attacks on Idaho's libraries and our public institutions are the problem. Please help preserve and protect Idaho's libraries. You will be in good company. Please vote no on House Bill 710.
Thank you for your testimony.
And I'm a mother of 4 children and a grandmother. I also am a lifelong registered Republican and the former Ada County chairwoman, GOP chairwoman. Thank you. And my testimony today is from this point of view. I have been a Republican my entire life, and I'm deeply concerned about the state's overreach of authority that this bill demonstrates by inserting itself into local issues that should be resolved by the local people, the state telling local elected officials how to do their job. First, the library boards and trustees are elected officials with the authority to establish policies, purchase books and materials, and oversee the library directors. It is inappropriate for the state to interfere in the locally elected governance of our community libraries and this could lead to further encroachment on our rights to local control. Hopefully not legislators dictating how Ada County should develop zoning maps. Our local citizens are perfectly capable of making their own decisions and resolving problems. And I trust Idahoans with these communities. Historically, this is how we've guided ourselves, which is why Idaho is such a great place to live. Our libraries have direct contact with the public, and the local communities receive these benefits. If there's a problem with any materials or facilities, the local elected officials have the authority to correct them. Second, this bill promotes litigation and should include a financial deterrent. Litigating parties who do not prevail should be held responsible for legal fees incurred by the library to help defer and deter frivolous lawsuits. The claimants or the parents or children should be required to certify that they've read these books or materials, that they've looked at them, and provide a reason for their complaint.
You can wrap up.
Thank you. No claim should be made against our libraries without this acknowledgement. I want to appreciate that I appreciate your good intentions. I appreciate your dedication to the best interests of our families. But I kindly request that we uphold respect for our communities and local governance and let them do their job. Please oppose this bill 710. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Mary Ann Cochran, we're going to see if we can make a virtual connection here. Ms. Cochran, can you hear us? Hello? I think you're muted. You there? You're muted. We can't hear you. Well, if you're not able to unmute, we'll have to go to the next testifier. I'm really sorry, but we can't hear you. Just love technology. Let's go with Eric Geronda. Jeez. Sorry. Geronda? Yeah. Yeah, let's do that.
Mr. Chair.
Introduce
Senators,
yourself for the record and correct me, so.
My name is Eric Geronda, longtime Idaho resident, born-again Christian, 35 years. I'm here to testify against this bill. So let me tell you what will happen if this bill passes. On the day that it's enacted, when it goes into effect, hundreds, if not thousands, of MAGA folks are going to descend on Idaho's libraries and take a book.
We need to kind of keep the conversation to the bill and not emotionally charged, so just be careful.
Okay, well, I was there a year and a half ago when they came to the Meridian Library, and this is what they did. They screamed groomers at people and stuff like that. That's what's going to happen. Now, really what I want to talk about is a week ago, out here in the hallway, I had a conversation with a pretty big Republican legislator, and he told me that there are three parties in Idaho now. There's a Democratic Party, the Republican Party, and the MAGA Party. Now, this bill is just another one of the bills that the MAGA Party has put forth that really, and he said that they were crazy bills. I like to think of them as just bad bills. What happens is they either put hoops in front of people, institutions like Idaho institutions like libraries or schools, they make them go through hoops to do their job. Or they take away freedoms from regular Idahoans, like me and like other Idahoans. And so I kind of want to talk to the real Republican, Idaho Republican legislators.
Let's keep politics out of it, sir. I'm not going to allow any more of that. Let's speak to the bill.
I am speaking about the bill.
Well, you're
sir.
speaking about a lot of politics, and I'm just, as the chair, I'm not going to allow it. So if you want to speak to the bill, let's do that.
Okay. I think this is a bad bill. I think it's a dirty bill. There's a lot of dirty money pouring into Idaho.
No,
for
you're out of order.
Object.
You're out of order. Please, I'm going to conclude your testimony and go to Jessica
you.
Dorr.
Read Slaughterhouse 5, folks.
Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Jessica Dorr, and I'm the director of the Boise Public Library. Like public libraries all over the state, I am committed to providing access and opportunity for everyone in our community. Today, I'm here to ask you to vote no on House Bill 710. I'm asking you to vote no on all unnecessary library legislation. As you've heard from previous sessions and hearings, there is no pornography or materials harmful to minors in public or school libraries, and a thorough review process for materials is already in place and overseen by locally accountable library boards. Libraries in Idaho do not provide obscene materials to children. What we provide is story times for toddlers and babies and school-aged children. We support new parents and families with kids of all ages. We provide tax help through a partnership with AARP, programs for seniors focused on memory care and preventing falls. You can join a Lego club, play bunco. There's a cardboard fort building will happen at our Collister branch this week. You can practice German or English, join a knitting club, read to a therapy dog. I am pulling these examples from this week's library program. This is a typical week for our library, as libraries all over the state. We have something for everyone, and we are the heart and soul of our community. I'm asking you to vote no on this legislation and let my staff get back to the work that we do for the community. We are tired of being mischaracterized, questioned, and attacked for a problem that does not exist. I'm seeing people in my profession and in my own staff leave the state, and when people leave, we lose the person who does story time, who knows your child's name when they come in, who has a book for them. I'm asking you to protect the passionate advocates for reading and learning and community connections by voting no on this bill.
Thank you for your testimony. Zach Borman. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Chairman Guthrie and Senators. My name is Zach Borman. I'm the president of the West Ada Education Association, the father of four, and I stand here in strong opposition to this bill. Much like the satanic panic of the 80s, the fear of pornography in libraries is the moral panic of this generation and is based on just about as much evidence. I beg each and every one of you, put this on hold for a few days, come tour our school or public libraries, and if you see real evidence and need for this bill, then come back and move it through. That's fine. But even if we believe that there is a serious problem, why would we treat this differently than we would past community dangers? Consider our COVID-era philosophy of governance. During that time, we entrusted each family to protect themselves and their kids, deciding for themselves if they wish to mask or vaccinate, and electing not to force some draconian oversight by a paternalistic state. Why are we not similarly trusting parents in this instance? Sex and sexuality are difficult topics to address, but like it or not, it's a part of being human. In our internet world, thinking this bill will do anything to stop a minor from accessing sexual content is as foolish as building a dam in the inlet to stop an oncoming tsunami. Our school and public libraries are not, nor have they ever been, how minors access materials for their prurient interests. Few of us live ideal lives in ideal timelines, and maturity is not magically gained at 18. Any real maturity is hard-won and carefully scaffolded when necessary by a variety of responsible actors throughout a young person's life. Parents, family, neighbors, teachers, coaches, and yes, sometimes librarians all work together to protect and grow our young. All we are advocating is for allowing responsible practice by responsible professionals to respond to the needs and interests of their communities. If there are problems with materials, there are already processes in place to deal with them. Please do not pass along this unnecessary and ineffectual bill.
Thank you for your testimony. Molly Noda. Welcome. You might have to pull that mic down.
Yeah, I'm kind of short.
and I'm going to talk really fast, like I'm talking to my toddler. So good morning, Chairman Guthrie and Senators. My name is Molly Noda, District 16, representing myself. So let me set the scene for you today, a typical day in my library. I'm all prepped for story time. I have my props, and as you know, story time is an hour dedicated to reading and early literacy. I have my regular kids here and a few new shy kids hiding in the corner. And by the end of music and movement, we're dancing, we're jumping, we're singing, we're running to the stacks with our grown-ups. I then take over for the youth services desk. Kids I've known since they were babies now toddle over asking for new easy readers. In a blink of an eye, their chubby hands are replaced with larger, confident ones. They need help researching for their book report. They want a new funny book. These children grow up with me, and we like talking to each other. We feel safe with each other. We are friends. I remember thinking, wow, this is my job. I get to do this. I'm so lucky. Fast forward to today, I drive a bookmobile and I bring these services out to rural communities who don't have ready access to books, technology, and more. This bill, House Bill 710, will not be good. It will cripple us. Not only does it supersede local control, it takes away my precious time from my library kids. We'll be monitoring an adult-only section. What does that look like? How many staff will be needed to monitor material that is obscene to some, fine for others? The library is a safe space for our community. By adding in state-sanctioned reading collection material policies, you take away my parental rights and those of my library kids and grown-ups. This isn't the American way, and it isn't the Idaho way. This will hurt our children who need our services most. I heard someone say on this committee that we're just concerned with our jobs. That's all that they're hearing. We care so much about our kids. And this will affect those who need our help the most.
You could wrap up.
Please vote no on House Bill 710, and I'll stand for any questions.
Senator Winthrop.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Noda, I notice you're pretty emotional. If you're comfortable, share with me about that, if possible.
Ms. Noda.
Chairman Guthrie, Senator Winthrop, I am a mom, and I'm a longtime Idahoan, and I am from a family riddled with addiction and mental health issues, and I was adopted, and I didn't see a lot of kids who came from situations like my own. It could have gone any way for me, you know? I could have engaged in behaviors that would not be beneficial for me. The library helped me see myself, and it really saved me. It provided a safe space for me.
Thank
and it's
you.
been hard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary DeWalt. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Mary DeWalt. I'm at District 19, representing myself. I oppose and appreciate the opportunity to address misperceptions. We hear engaging with the library via existing policy and procedure hasn't worked, and the threat of civil action is the only recourse. This is likely because the person never engaged at all, instead complaining socially instead of communicating directly, or the person who attempted to engage did not like the answer they received, that the item in question was indeed accessed and shelved in accordance with local policy and Idaho law as it would clear the Miller test. Libraries respect the individual and family values of community members, but have a responsibility to ensure there are materials that meet the needs and interests of diverse people. While an item may have one paragraph or image that someone may find offensive, the work on a whole has value. Materials are shelved by age relevance. A 7-year-old is not going to have interest in a teen book. A 16-year-old who seeks an adult novel and gets through to one paragraph with a sexual reference will comprehend that paragraph in the context it is intended. There's a reason the Supreme Court adopted the Miller test for obscenity, including a key component, appeals on a whole to prurient interests. Like the saying, do not judge a book by its cover,
The Miller test ensures that no one word, image, or paragraph from a book makes it obscenity. Libraries do have some materials with nudity or sexual references. Mere presence does not make an item obscene. A picture book showing two women holding hands is in no way appealing to prurient interest, yet under this bill, someone could call that book obscene and file on it. Sponsors gloss over this, saying it just needs to be moved, that's all. What if it doesn't need to be moved, but the objecting party disagrees? Libraries will have to go through unwarranted legal process. Sponsors state if obscene materials don't exist, what is the problem with the bill?
If you could wrap up.
Sure, the problem is perception. The problem is there are people who feel so strongly that they would attempt to force relocation to an adults-only section. Context in Miller test is vital. Better communication is what's needed, not a new law. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Rucht. Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Guthrie and committee members. I'm really struggling to figure out what it would take for this committee to say no. This is not a new issue. You know, over and over again, you guys have dealt with so many different bills. I just don't know what it would take. For the record, I actually am against children reading materials harmful to them. Absolutely. I'm also against this bill. And it seems to me that providing this cause of action is just a rotten thing to do to libraries. It's actually a rotten thing to do to all of us because we're taxpayers. We're paying for the libraries. It's not libraries as some separate entity. It's us. It's like government. We are government. We are the taxpayers. There are libraries. And it's to place libraries, our service, at such financial undetermined risk is not a great thing for us as taxpayers. It's sort of that simple. I listened to the House debate, floor debate, and one of the legislators basically said, do this, take this one. This has been hammered out, not to everyone's satisfaction, but it's been hammered out. Either take this one or wait till the next one comes back, because it's going to be worse and worse. That didn't feel good. Anyhow, it seems like it's a little bit of governmental overreach, legislative overreach. Please vote no on this. Put it back in the drawer.
Thank you for your testimony. Mary Emery. Welcome.
Chairman, senators, attendees.
Hold that mic closer.
I feel strongly about this bill, House Bill 710, because it's about how we should react to curiosity. Curiosity is important and relevant to this bill. We all want to be curious and stimulate curiosity in our children, even when it makes us uncomfortable. You have the privilege and responsibility of representing your constituents. I'm curious about the origin of this proposed legislation. Where are those constituents in support of this legislation? I recognize that Grace had 2,000 signatures. That's great. And there's always been one person, one or two, that felt differently than I do. I've seen or heard only a handful of those people. One and perhaps the most noted was a lady videotaping in a library her child handling an objectionable to her book. That scenario indicates problems unsolvable by any legislation. What I have seen or read are hundreds of expressions by people voicing objections to this bill, and primarily it's the legislators who are defending it. Where are those people? Why don't they show up and defend their cause? Are they so confident in passage of this bill that they don't think it's necessary? Why not expose themselves as individuals? Let's remember that books are selected by librarians locally. I imagine they're already pretty skittish in this. Let's not be naive about our resources. Where do we want to go? Where do we want to take or advise our children to go? What are our choices? Family, friends, experiences, the library, the internet. Where can we hope that knowledge, compassion, and tolerance can be found? In the past, I borrowed words from Neil Maxwell, don't get into the thick of thin things. Today, I borrow from Mark Twain, common sense ain't so common.
Yeah, if you could wrap up.
Please don't be afraid to vote no. And then I just wanted to say one quick thing. This reminds me of an incident I had with my 13-year-old granddaughter. I expressed concern over language in a song that she was singing with the radio in the car. And she said, "Oh, Grandma, I hear worse than that at the bike rack."
Probably not going to get a lot of argument there. Huda Shaltry. And I may have not nailed that one either, but welcome to committee. Introduce yourself.
My name is Huda Shaltry.
Pull that mic up for you a little.
Oh, yes. I've been watching everybody else do it, and then I forgot it right when I got here. Good morning, Chair Guthrie and members of the Senate State Affairs. My name is Huda Shaltry, and I'm speaking as myself as a mother of 2 teenage daughters, a librarian, and as the legislative co-chair for the Idaho Library Association. I oppose HB 710. I feel like there's really nothing that I can say that you guys haven't already heard today. And I agree with everything that's been said today. Protecting children, this bill is overreach, all the things. So rather, I'm going to talk to you about my life as a librarian and what the last 3 years has looked like. I would like to say that I didn't have this much gray hair 3 years ago. There's probably no proof of that, but still. The rhetoric that has gone around with these bills has really affected my career and multiple libraries all around our state. I hear stories from all over the state of people reaching out to me, telling me things that they have been told. I have been told that I give porn to 5-year-olds. I don't. I would never. Last July, a gentleman came into my library branch that I manage, the Hillcrest branch, and threw a book at my staff and called them horrible words. And my staff's first reaction was protecting the families and children nearby from this man. Not them, not being worried of them. They literally had a book thrown at them. I don't want to focus on that guy though today. Not all of it has been bad. Honestly, I have seen so much love and support from our library patrons, our regulars, come and apologize to me for having to deal with things like this. Honestly, every week somebody has thanked me for the existence of libraries and what we do and the resources that we provide, the tax support, the printing, so many things, helping people find a home, escape their domestic violence situation. This is what we do. This is what I was trained to do. For every one person, I mean, I don't bet, I don't do things like that. I don't even play the lottery. It's terrifying and anxiety-ridden for me. But I would imagine that for every constituent you have heard from, I have had 100 positive interactions with people talking to me about their books.
Wrap up.
One of the things that I just want to say really quickly is that there is a chilling effect of this, and there's a school district that has a list of 48 books that they're going to pull based on how this bill goes.
Senator Anthony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Shaltry. Has the Idaho Library Association taken a position on this bill?
Ms. Shaltry.
Yeah, sorry, Senator, I even wrote this down, Senator Guthrie and Senator Anthony. Yes, we oppose the bill. We have processes in place. We worked really hard and worked and compromised with other bills that we've seen this legislative session, one of the 3, 1289. And yeah, we've been working. We have met with a few lovely people and are always willing to meet with lovely people. I mean, even not lovely people, I would say, but also we meet with our constituents. We would love to meet with you as well.
Thank you for your testimony. Nick Grove? Yes, come on up. Introduce yourself for the record. Welcome.
Hi, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm Nick Grove. I'm the library director at the Meridian Library District. I would much rather be at home with my children during spring break than here, but here it is. I had a speech planned for this morning. A lot of what I've wanted to say has been said before. Been in front of this group before, and I don't know what can be said that will be persuasive. I don't know if it's facts, is it stories, is it refutals to the false narrative, is it hypotheticals that happen in the future? This is a bad bill, pure and simple. We don't have the luxury of passing it and then seeing what will happen and then coming back to fix it next year. This will be detrimental to our communities. Full stop. If you look across the country, these bills have been introduced and failed all the way. Every time that a state has passed one of these, it has failed in court. So, why do we continue to push this false narrative forward? The facts don't support it. The community doesn't support it. Our businesses don't support it. The law doesn't support it. What is the purpose of this? Our library was forced to defend itself, and our public came out and told us, we want our library. They elected people that support libraries. This is not supported. This is a continuation of a great fear tactic. Look no further than the Red Scare and McCarthyism. This is the exact same tactic that was used in the 50s to try and oust the communist that they had on their list, just like the list that they have. And yes, I will wrap up. This is completely unnecessary, and I wish there was a way that we could convince you of that.
Thank you for your testimony. I'm going to try to go to a telephone. Kara Claridge. We'll see if it works this time. No, she just disappeared. Let's go with, we'll try another virtual. It's haven't had very good luck this morning. Josiah Draywin. Yeah. It's like technology is taking a sabbatical this morning. No. Let's try Heather Stout virtually. We may have some technical problems that we're not. No, there she is.
Oh, good. No, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
we can. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
There we go.
There you
There
go.
we go. I'm ready.
All right, welcome to
Okay.
committee. Introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chairman Guthrie and committee members. My name is Heather Stout, and I vote in Genesee, Idaho. I am a retired professional librarian, and I am representing myself in opposition to HB 710. First off, this proposed bill is very vague, and it's pure government overreach. Legislators favoring this bill keep telling us that they are just asking libraries to relocate books, but the language in the bill goes much further. The bill states that the materials must not be accessible to minors. Well, in reality, that means locked cabinets, closed stacks, and yes, it does mean removal, especially in small one-room libraries. What about adult-only sections that I've heard about? Well, does that require a wall, a security guard, additional staff to check IDs? What if a minor pulls a book off the shelf in that section? Also, what about library consortiums? What about interlibrary loans? I use these services because I live in a very rural, large geographical area. These restrictions are unreasonable and they're unworkable. I keep hearing this bill is about parental control, yet this bill allows anyone to challenge any material, whether they live in the community or not, whether they are residents of the school district or not, even if they don't even live in our state. In addition, anyone can bring legal action at any time, regardless of whether the library followed policy. This bill is not about parental control. It's about denying access to constitutionally protected materials because someone made you or someone feel uncomfortable. I have testified and listened to testimony on every library bill that has been introduced in this legislature going back 3 years. In every instance, the overwhelming testimony by our fellow Idahoans is that they are very satisfied with their libraries. They're very satisfied with the professionals staffing those libraries, and they're very satisfied with current library policies. HB 17 is unnecessary. It's wrong for Idaho. Librarians are leaving the state. Please, please, I urge you to vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this morning. We'll try to go to Martha Williams. Good morning.
Hi.
Welcome
Good morning.
to committee.
Can you hear me? Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Guthrie and committee members. I'm Martha Williams of District 26, here representing myself, and I oppose House Bill 710 for many of the same reasons you've already heard, primarily the removal of local control, the bill's private right of action. I'm also concerned about the deviation from the Miller test that was discussed, as well as the description in existing Idaho code that includes an act of homosexuality as sexual conduct. I think that's a different issue entirely, but something that I wanted to mention. And then also the line on page 2, line 47, that includes a vague description of any other material harmful to a minor. I think this line and the other issues open up this legislation to much broader interpretation than was intended or could be intended. I understand there are materials some parents don't want their children seeing or being exposed to, but those same materials may be sought by others, including minors whose parents are not willing to work with them or have hard conversations about sexuality and violence. They may be books about LGBTQ youth who are bullied in school and find their way. They might be about teenagers who are sexually assaulted and survive and help others. Or they might be about non-sexual themes like race and class that make some people uncomfortable. Under this bill, these youth will lose access to materials that may literally be life-saving to them. Finally, in the absence of good information vetted by editors, publishers, and librarians, youth will instead, as some have noted, seek out this information to their questions and curiosities online, where they have far less direction and support from caring adults, including their parents and librarians who care deeply for their communities and these youth that they serve. So thank you for taking my testimony, and thank you also for making as much time as possible available for testimony. I greatly appreciate it as a citizen of
Thank
Idaho.
you.
So please vote no on this bill. Thank you.
We have a question from Senator Anthony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Williams. I really appreciated your testimony today because it's reasoned. I can see that you're talking about the bill. And I'm wondering if you're reading the bill differently than I am. And so I'm just asking that. So you mentioned the reference to any other material harmful to minors. And I can understand how the reading of that on its face would be concerning. But the way I'm reading it is it then refers back to the first section of the bill, which actually defines harmful to minors. And that's very specific. So am I missing something there, or could you kind of tell me what you think about it?
Ms. Williams.
Yes, Chair Guthrie and Senator Anthony, thank you for that question, because I too find I find the line very confusing, and primarily because just before that, the bill does specify, textual materials, audiovisual materials. The two lines, A and B, above that line, to me, seem to clarify the materials that are in a library. And so line C, I just find, I find it vague for many reasons. I think it is helpful to hear how you read it as referring back to an earlier part of the bill, but it's just unclear to me what it is attempting to really cover that hasn't already been covered.
Thank you for your testimony. Let's try to go to Lee Dabney. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Can't see. There you go.
Hi.
Introduce
Hi, thank
yourself
you
and
so
welcome
much.
to committee.
Yes, thank you so much. Hi, Chairman Guthrie and committee members. My name is Lee Dabney. Please vote against Bill 710. Shortly after the 2020 election, someone in my community started driving around with a large flag from their car that said, "F you, Biden." It bummed me out. An inappropriate expletive out for all to see. As a children's librarian, I think this way. I think of all the kids in the back seat of their cars when their mom and dad asking, "What's that say?" Or better yet, all those emerging readers compelled to read everything that they see. Because while FU is not hard to sound out, yay phonics, it is difficult to explain. One day my son was in the car with me when we spotted the flag. "Wow," was his comment, and he looked sheepishly at me with raised eyebrows, waiting for my reaction. Luckily, he is 16 at the time and familiar with both US history and bad words. We talked about the First Amendment and a person's right in the United States to free speech. The right for that driver to drive around with that flag. Libraries are stewards of books. We don't agree or embrace every volume on our shelves. It is not my opinion that determines a book's place in our library or not. Books are considered, moved, and removed based on predetermined and thoughtful criteria from years of litigation and constitutional analysis way above my pay grade. Parents have more pattern behavior than any book. Is there so little confidence in parents that this bill is needed? Being in the car with my son that day was not a moment about censorship. It was a moment about parenting. It is no more appropriate for a flag-waving driver to be relegated to the back streets of my town than for books that offend some to be segregated to an adults-only space.
And if you could
in
wrap
the
up.
library. I will, thank you. As Ronald Reagan said, "So long as books are kept open, then minds can never be closed." Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Let's go to Nixon Matthews. We're gonna almost get to everyone, but not quite. But a couple more, we're gonna have to shut it off. I'm already probably in jeopardy with the majority leader, but.
Oh,
Hello, please introduce yourself for the record.
my name is Nixon Matthews. I am a lifelong Idahoan, and I'm a resident of District 16. And I'm here to express my opposition to HB 710. This bill is yet another attempt to ban books and ultimately threaten our freedom and the vitally important role that libraries play in our communities. And I just want to kind of lay out some of my concerns with this bill. First, this will censor and restrict access to literature, especially those representing the LGBTQI community. These are not just stories, they embody real experiences, they create empathy, understanding, inclusiveness, and restricting these would further marginalize and isolate our communities who find their identity in these books. But I think what is really important here is this is not the will of Idahoans. It undermines the judgment of our librarians, a judgment that is, according to the Idaho Public Policy Survey, that says 69% of Idahoans trust public libraries and librarians to choose the books that are made available to them. Idahoans don't want this bill. They trust librarians and libraries. It really is a responsibility that should be left to the parents, not to the legislature. And I just want to say from a personal note, my mom is a retired public school teacher, but she started out as a librarian. My mother-in-law is a retired librarian. I have had the privilege of meeting librarians all over the state of Idaho, and they are doing their absolute best. And I just want to say to them, thank you for doing your job and for providing a space that allows children to access books where they can see themselves in, they can learn about themselves, and they can learn about a world of opportunity outside of this. Libraries are the heart of our communities, and we should be protecting that at all costs. So I'd ask you, please, to vote no on HB 710.
Thank you for your testimony. I'm going to go to one last testifier, Katie Wheeler. And I do think I've got to everyone that's in the room that signed up, and that was my preference, to make sure that those that took the time to come in. So hopefully that was achieved. Going to miss a few of the online folks.
Good morning, Chairman Guthrie. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Thank you. My name is Katie Wheeler, and I live in District 20. I've lived in Idaho for my entire life. I am a former teacher, and I'm testifying on behalf of myself in opposition to House Bill 710. As many people have already stated, this bill is full of issues that would hinder our libraries, our school, and our public libraries, and negatively impact the kids in Idaho. Librarians have testified in the past, during the past bills that have been brought up this legislative session, that many books that parents and adults seek to remove from kids' availability are the very same books that the other patrons of that library have requested to have. And that's because every single person will decide what's best for their kids, and every person has that right. If you put 10 folks in a room and ask them to determine what's appropriate for a 5-year-old and a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old, they would never agree. And that's perfectly fine. That's why we have choice. And that's why our libraries need to continue to have books that everyone would enjoy, and parents need to continue to be the decision makers for what is appropriate for their children. People have already brought up in earlier testimony the fact that what's appropriate for a 5-year-old may not be appropriate for a 15-year-old. This bill completely ignores that and says that anything that would be inappropriate for someone under the age of 18 would need to be removed from the library. That means that any book that is inappropriate for absolutely everyone under the age of 18 would need to be removed. And how sad for our teenagers and our young adults who need diverse perspectives and who need to be able to see the world and see themselves represented in literature. People have also brought up the fact that moving books to a, quote, adults-only section is not as easy as it may sound. For a school library, that means removing the book. That there's no other section. There's no adults-only section in a school library. And that means that our school libraries will lose books, lose a lot of books, and those kids won't be able to access them. Another thing people have brought up.
Yeah, if you could wrap up.
Okay. I urge you to vote no on House Bill 710, just as the other, 28 testifiers have urged you today. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We are going to finish at this point, and just a couple of comments, and then I'll get the committee's reaction. You know, there's sometimes we have issues that we get frustrated with, and I can certainly appreciate that, and this particular issue is no exception to that. But I will tell you there's a silver lining in this, at least for me personally, because over the interim I went to a lot of different libraries, interacted with a lot of different folks, and the fact that you're here, I think it exposes to us the passion you have for what you do. And so that's not lost on me, or I don't believe on the committee. So I want to thank you for that, and thank you for being here yet again. I see a lot of repeat folks that, and it's because you do care. I don't know what's going on with that, but it must be an Amber Alert or something.
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry.
So I'm going to offer a potential path forward, and I'll let the committee decide whether or not they concur. Obviously, we're going to have considerable committee discussion on this. What I want to do today is end testimony. We won't take any further testimony. I would like to continue this at the call of the chair, at which point we will allow Senator Carlson to close, and then we'll allow the committee for discussion and potential motions or path forward. And if I don't see an objection from the committee, that's how we'll proceed. I think to adequately vet this in the committee discussion part of it, we need that extra time, and we have to be on the floor at 10, and obviously we're probably going to be a little tardy for that. Committee, is there any comments or objections to that? Senator Winder?
No objections, Mr. Chairman, but I do want to make a comment while we have the librarians here.
Senator Winder.
A few years ago, we were dealing with teacher pay, the different things going on in our schools, and everyone came in opposed to what we were trying to do and said we hated teachers. I just want to point out, we don't hate librarians. When this first came up, we talked about it, and I said, people are up to mischief here because they wanted to put librarians in jail. This bill's far from that. We recognize that that's not a good way to handle this. I know some of you are frustrated that you've had to come here multiple times, but this is not an easy subject. And some of you brought up the issue, well, where's the opposition or where's the supporters of this? I don't know where they are today. I do know that, as I've said before, I kind of poo-pooed the whole issue until a friend of mine brought a book to me at a birthday party for one of my great-grandchildren, handed me a book that said it was about baseball, but I can guarantee you it wasn't about baseball. And I felt it was very inappropriate for a third-grade kid to have. So there's an issue here that we're trying to deal with. Try not to get frustrated with us as we try to reason through the process. And please, please don't think this is out of disrespect to any of you as librarians, any of you as teachers and librarians. That's not what this is about. We've got parents that have concerns we're trying to deal with. And remember, our Constitution is set up to protect the minority, not the majority. Thank you.
I don't see any other discussion. Just for the record, there were 6 that we didn't get to, and they were all opposed to the legislation. So is there any other concerns with the path forward I've suggested? Again, thank you for your attendance and your patience as we try to deal with this issue. And with that, we're adjourned.